Mayor Dexter?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Carr?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hodgson?
Good evening.
Councilmember Miller?
Here.
Councilmember Schwab?
Here.
Councilmember Suggs?
Here.
Manager West?
Present.
Attorney Sahandi?
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you can please stand as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are going to start tonight with a proclamation because tomorrow is Earth Day. So we don't have any group receiving it this evening, but I'm going to read it. A proclamation recognizing Earth Day, April 22nd, 2026. Whereas Earth Day began as an educational effort on environmental issues. The efforts were led by Senator Gaylord Nelson, and the original date was chosen as April 22nd to coincide with spring break and final exams to promote and encourage student participation. His efforts to raise public awareness are why now, each year, we recognize the day as a reminder that it is our responsibility to preserve our environment for future generations. And whereas the city regularly promotes waste reduction and recycling and provides numerous rebates and incentives to encourage energy efficient technology in residential, commercial, and industrial uses. And whereas the city continues to work to make improvements to public parks and spaces, we were proud to continue the City Shade Street Tree program for a third year. Since its launch in 2023, we've planted over 400 new street trees across the community. And whereas the City Council has made environmental protection one of their top priorities on their list of 2026 legislative priorities, supporting legislation associated with the protection of the Elwha watershed and trust land transfer program, which would conserve 7,600 acres of forest and grassland. In addition, the city also requests support from our legislators in advocating for a complete and permanent cleanup of the Rainier Mill site and the Ennis Creek restoration, which hosts the greatest diversity of native fish stock, including ESA-listed salmonids. Whereas Earth Day, let us take a moment to appreciate the beauty and importance of our natural environment. The responsibility for preserving that environment is shared by the entire community, and the City of Port Angeles acknowledges the efforts of countless individuals, businesses, government, and nonprofit agencies who work to sustain the productive capacity of our forest, marine, agricultural, and atmospheric ecosystems for future generations. The city calls upon each resident to take a step toward change with the knowledge and confidence the city is also doing so. It is our collective responsibility to protect our natural resources and invest in our planet's future. Now, therefore, I, Kate Dexter, on behalf of the City Council of Port Angeles, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2026 as Earth Day in the City of Port Angeles and encourage all residents to participate in this important effort by taking action in their daily lives to promote the resilience and sustainability of the Port Angeles community. Thank you. All right. Are there any late items from staff?
Mayor and Council, we have no late items this evening. However, we do have one item to remove from the agenda. We would like to pull item I2 from the agenda and reschedule that for May 5th. For everyone's awareness, that is a Public Safety Advisory Board work plan presentation, and we will be rescheduling that presentation for May 5th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any late items from Council? All right, I don't hear any, so we will go to our first public comment period. And just a reminder, the first public comment period is for items on tonight's agenda. And we do have a second public comment period, which is an open comment period. I will see if we have anybody signed up. If you are joining us virtually, now is the time and you wish to make a comment related to tonight's agenda, please raise your virtual hand now. We will do council chambers first. And again, as a reminder, if you can please state your name and whether or not you're a resident, and you will have 3 minutes. And let's see, it looks like the only sign up I have is for second public comment period. So John, go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, John Ralston, City of Port Angeles resident. I was hoping to follow Steve Paleo regarding LTAC. I just sent him a text and he's tied up with a phone call, business call, where his clients are in a way different time zone. So I'm going to hit on a few things here. And I hope you all have had the time to read his email and understand it and quit spending so much money, or I'm going to say not making the best investments. It's hard for me to believe that the county administers a program that's equal to the cities, in my opinion. And you spend 20 times as many hours, 20 times. The packet that the staff put together is certainly somewhat accurate. But to spend 1,375 hours and you have 30 recipients, it's about 45 hours per recipient. It's absolutely crazy. If this was my business, administering 30 people or 30 recipients and spending $1.8 million, I wouldn't support it at all. There'd be some massive changes. Also want to comment on the minutes from the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting of March 12th. At least one of your members of the council was at that meeting, of which there were also 9 staff members there, 9. Public comment. 5 people spoke in public comment. All 5 of them spoke in opposition to the funding levels that the city is requiring or asking for. It's not mentioned that way in these minutes whatsoever. Doesn't mention that they were speaking in opposition to it. Go back and listen to the recordings if you choose. So I would encourage you to spend money wisely and not fund the monies that they're asking for. One of the comments at a prior council meeting is that it was good training or would be good training, or it's a good investment of time to teach people how to be grant writers. I would encourage every one of you to Google grant writing. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of videos to how to write grants. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, anyone else on first public comment? Go ahead, Joe. I don't have any hands online at this time.
Joe DiScala, City of Port Angeles. I'm the director of 4PA, so I'm up here to ask that you would vote in favor of the allocation of the SUT funds to our Touchstone Campus project tonight. And I just wanted to give a tiny bit of background on that. You know, we've kind of prided ourselves in being a community organization that has been funded by the community. But you know what? We bought an almost 80-year-old building. And there's a lot of things in that building that will eventually be the common facilities for our residents that we could have never foreseen until we started opening up that building. We will eventually house 11 folks on our campus that will be transitional housing. And this common facility is really vital because that's where the kitchen and the bathrooms and the laundry and everything are going to be housed. So when we started opening up the walls, we realized, man, there's a lot of work here. So this grant would be huge for us because it's not, if we didn't get it, it wouldn't stop the project, but it would definitely slow it down. And so this is going to enable us to keep the momentum going, stay on track to overcome some of these obstacles that we've actually uncovered, and really get the doors open in a timely fashion. One of the things with our permit too is that right now we're building 3 more tiny homes as we speak. But part of our permits is we can't have those occupied until we have more common facilities in place. So it's critical that we have the bathrooms and the showers and the kitchen there so the folks are safe. They have the ability to cook and bathe and launder their clothes. So this is a really critical step. I also want to thank the staff who's put a lot of work into this because, this process has been relatively seamless for us. And so, Jalen's put in a lot of work, Ben, everybody who's, contacted me when I would call with a question. There's been no delay. The inspectors have come out in a timely fashion. So I just want to say that everybody who is overseeing these funds has done their due diligence. And it's been really helpful for an organization like ours to be able to keep going. So thanks for all those involved.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else on first public comment period, tonight's agenda? Okay, and I don't have any hands online, so we will move on to the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? Go ahead, Latricia.
Well, after Joe speaking, I think it's important that we pull the affordable housing grant so we can hear from staff about what that grant entails, besides from what just Joe, because I think it's important for the community to hear what the grant entails and that the city continues to work with 4PA as a partner in this project for their Touchstone campus. And I think it's vital that we continue to advocate and work with them as partners. And so I think it's important that we hear from our staff what that grant entails.
Okay. Can I ask a clarifying question from staff? Do we need to pull it in order to have a brief presentation? I mean, we have traditionally, I think, but
Council, you can certainly go either way. We can have a brief presentation and discussion while it remains on consent, if you prefer, or if you prefer to pull it from consent, we can do that outside of consent.
Okay. Anyone else have feelings about getting just a brief presentation and leaving it on consent? Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. Is there anything anyone would like to add to consent? Drew?
Would you like me to do the whole list or go one by one?
Let's do one by one.
Okay. H1, the 2025-26 strategic plan update, passed resolution.
Any concerns about that? Okay, I don't hear anything from council.
Okay. H2, resolution amending the city's master fee schedule for hearing examiner matters and the utility master fee schedule for electric vehicle charging station rates, passed resolution.
Any concerns about that? Okay.
I3, permanent committee appointments, approve and direct.
Any concerns? Okay.
And then J1, A Street wastewater capacity improvement, Con 2026-01 award construction contract, WWO 2222 award and authorize.
Any concerns with that?
I think it's really important that we hear about that project. So I would like to keep it off the consent agenda.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. I will read the consent agenda and then we'll pause for a brief presentation from staff and then entertain a motion. The minutes from March 17th, 2026 and April 7th, 2026. Expenditure report from March 28th to April 10th, 2026 in the amount of $2,856,279.74. Material purchase, electrical underground cables, 2026 purchase. Equipment purchase, replacement of police patrol vehicle number 0913. ILA 2024-07 rock chip purchase approval. Search and rescue training land use agreement between the City of Port Angeles and the United States Coast Guard. Adobe software annual license renewal. HB 1590 RCW 82.14.530 affordable housing grant to 4PA. 2025-2026 strategic plan update. Resolution amending the city's master fee schedule for hearing examiner matters and the utility master fee schedule for electric vehicle charging station rates. Permanent committee appointments. And permanent committee appointments. All right. Just a minute. Let me go to who should I go to for a brief presentation on? It's here, but I just need to flip to to the memo. I don't usually
Mayor
leave
CED Manager Cartmel.
Great.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This agenda item is an affordable housing grant to 4PA utilizing House Bill 1590 funds through RCW 82-14-530. You can find this information beginning on page E49 of your packet. 4PA is requesting a grant of $91,006.37 to provide seismic upgrades to the property at 230 East First Street. I will now turn it over to Housing Administrator Boato for more information.
Mayor and Council, my name is Jalen Boato, and I'm the city's housing administrator and one of the associate planners. 4PA has approached the city requesting the use of House Bill 1590 RCW 8214-530 funding for an eligible project. 4PA is requesting funds to provide transitional housing at 230 East First Street for individuals experiencing homelessness. In February of 2025, the city granted 4PA a $50,000 grant through SUT 2508 to be utilized to update the electrical systems by purchasing and installing a 500 kVA mount on vault and installing a new primary extension to serve the transformer. Since Sales and Use Tax 2508 funding was distributed, 4PA has completed 3 tiny homes, 2 of which are occupied by residents experiencing homelessness. This additional $91,006 request will fund materials and labor for essential updates to the structure and foundation, a new roof for the common facilities building, and upgrades to the sewer line to increase capacity. To date, 4PA has already paid for $87,351 of these eligible costs. 4PA's development at 230 East First Street will serve as the site for the Touchstone campus. The campus will be an all-in-one operations center, providing each of 4PA's services. This includes a half-acre of green space that will accommodate 11 transitional housing units, with occupants having 24/7 access to a fully renovated common facilities, including bathrooms, showers, laundry, and a kitchen. In addition, a retail business will be added to the former Pen Print building at a future date to provide employment opportunities for those staying on the campus. The result will be a safe place to learn life skills, helping individuals transition to self-sustainability in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any questions or comments? Amy, go ahead.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to just again remind the council that I am on the Touchstone Campus Committee, which has nothing to do with the money or the buildings, but I am associated in that way.
Thank you. All right. Or if there aren't any other comments or questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Anyone opposed to the motion to approve the consent agenda as read, please state your opposition. All right, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you, Joe, for doing that work. And maybe when it's done, we can come and check it out again. Probably in process, we can check it out too. All right, thank you. All right. I do see a hand online. I just want to note the public comment period is over. So there is a second public comment period, and I will note that you can leave your hand up for that comment period. All right, that brings us to item I1. Let me flip to that.
Mayor,
Yes.
Before we get too far into I1, I do want to point out that GoPA LLC, which is one of the grant applicants, is SquatchCon. I am associated with SquatchCon. We don't have a board of directors. I do not receive any money. In fact, actually, as the corporate sponsor, I pay them. But I am directly connected to GoPA LLC. I'm willing to recuse myself if council feels that's necessary, but there's no direct or indirect financial connection to me.
Okay. Unless our city attorney disagrees, I don't think you need to recuse yourself. I think just making sure that we're aware of that is good. Okay, so I will call on, okay, thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Go ahead.
All right. Mayor and Council, tonight's presentation is going to be on the 2026 Lodging Tax Advisory Committee Round 2 Budget Recommendation. You can find this information on page I1 of your packet. I'm now going to turn it over to Associate Planner and Natural Resources Grant Administrator, Mrs. Barnsworth.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's presentation is on the 2026 Lodging Tax Fund Round 2 recommendation from the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. This presentation is roughly 7 minutes long, so I ask that you please hold any questions you might have until the end, as questions early on may be addressed on a later slide. the November 13th, 2025 LTAC meeting, the LTAC recommended the award of 37 2026 lodging tax applications that were approved by City Council. This left a variance that the LTAC recommended to City Council be utilized for a second round application period for funding at the beginning of 2026. Included in this recommendation was the staff request for program administration and fiduciary oversight, which was recommended for a reduced amount of $55,824 rather than the full request. At the December 16th, 2025 City Council meeting, Council approved the LTAC's recommendation for a preliminary 2026 LTAC's fund budget and to open a Round 2 fund RFP. Additionally, at this meeting, staff were directed by Council to bring a resolution to set policy for the LTAC that includes fully funding the administrative costs of the lodging tax program prior to the next Lodging Tax Advisory Council meeting. At the February 3rd, 2026 City Council meeting, staff presented Resolution 0226 that would allocate 12% of the available lodging tax budget to program administration and fiscal oversight through an amendment to the 2026 Port Angeles LTAC funding work plan and procedures, which passed by council vote. In accordance with state law, staff prepared and submitted a Round 2 funding request for the remaining $78,710 that was not approved in the Round 1 request. On March 12th, 2026, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met to review and recommend awards for the Round 2 funding requests. A total of 11 applications were reviewed. 2 funding requests for capital expenditures were recommended for funding, and 9 marketing, operations, and events requests were recommended for funding. The LTAC voted to utilize excess reserves in addition to the remaining available budget from the Round 1 requests. In accordance with state law, staff prepared and submitted a Round 2 funding request for the remaining $78,710 that was not approved in the original Round 1 submission for staff administration and fiduciary oversight of the program. On March 12th, the LTAC recommended appropriating only $20,000 of this request, despite the adoption of Resolution 0226 to allocate 12% of the lodging tax budget for this purpose. Should this recommendation stand, nearly $60,000 in oversight costs will be subsidized by the city's general fund. The next part of this presentation will cover a few frequently asked questions staff have been asked regarding the lodging tax administration and fiscal oversight of the program. These questions and our responses are meant to provide transparency and clarity behind the staff oversight of the program. Question 1. How did staff go from requesting $55,824 to now a 12% allocation for administrative oversight? A flat amount of $36,000 was set aside during the priority setting process by City Council for staff administration in 2015. That point in time amount has grown slowly over time to $55,824 in 2025 and not kept pace with the growth of the program and the corresponding complexity. The 2026 Round 2 figure is based upon careful review of the actual time needed to support robust administration and fiscal oversight. Question 2. Would this new allocation approach become permanent? It's important to note that the work plan and procedures document is a living document. Resolutions made by City Council remain policy until Council passes a new resolution. Question 3. Has there been any consideration into keeping the allocation a flat rate? A flat rate is just that, it is flat. As we all know, costs and inflation have not been flat, and picking an arbitrary number would seem to put us back in the same position that the original flat rate of $36,000 in 2015 has put us in. It seems logical that as the size of the program grows, the costs for ensuring strict administrative and fiscal oversight should also grow proportionally. Question 4. How does city staff determine the costs associated with program administration? Staff have an ethical responsibility to be honest and accurate, and were diligent in identifying all applicable positions and hours spent administering these funds. This was a deep dive into the actual time needed to support robust lodging tax administration and fiscal oversight. Staff are proposing 2 options for recommendation tonight. Option A is 1, modify the March 12th, 2026 LTAC recommendation as allowed by RCW 6728-1817-2 to fully fund all requests for round 2, including the city's requested program oversight costs for an updated 2026 lodging tax fund budget of $1,876,045. And 2, request the finance director include this item in the next formal budget amendment to the 2026 budget. This next recommendation references Table 4, which can be found on page I-4 of your agenda packet. Option B recommends 1, adopt the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's recommendation for round 2 as is for an updated 2026 lodging tax fund budget of $1,817,335 with a reduction in commitment of staff resources as detailed in Table 4. And 2, request the finance director include this item in the next formal budget amendment to the 2026 budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just give me one moment. I'm making a note. All right. Thank you. Oops, sorry. Are there comments or questions from council? I can, as the representative, I don't usually speak first, so it feels weird, but I am on the Lodging Tax Committee and can give you my recollection of, if people are interested, just a little more background on how we landed where we did. If people are interested. Yes, okay. Do you have a question?
No, I was going to say I'm very interested.
So there definitely was not a consensus among the committee about the staff. There was unanimous vote in favor of, if I remember correctly, and the minutes probably reflect that, it was not unanimous for the whole package. There wasn't a lot of just concern about the external grant requests. And so those were all funded well. We were down one person, so we had 6 people, and the vote on the staff funding, which is where the bulk of the we moved through the other applications very quickly and then spent most of our time talking about the staff allocation. We had a couple of failed motions, people kind of just throwing out some thoughts. And there was a mixed opinion on the board on the committee about whether there should be any money paid, that there should be some additional money, but not as much as was asked. And I did vote in support of the 20,000 because I wanted something to be allocated, and articulated that I would have supported more. But also we had a motion. If it failed, we might have gone for something else, but there was certainly not going to be a consensus to get the staff request. So it comes back to us in this form. And I think the primary concerns, we all got an email from Stephen Palaio, and I think some of the concerns that he raised were concerns that people on the committee raised. And I think there is, I don't want to speak for the other committee members necessarily. People felt like, well, they should get something, but this seems like too much. And I think it is valuable. What we didn't talk about there as much is a breakdown. We did a little bit of a breakdown about where those staff costs are coming from. And so I think, to me, that is an important consideration for us to make. And there was not, admittedly, I probably didn't represent it as well as I should have, a lot of conversation around the council motion that sent it back. So that's sort of a very brief synopsis. So, Navarro, go ahead.
I have a couple questions and some statements to make. So I think I just want to touch on something that Courtney mentioned, which was around the issue that we had around choosing a specific dollar amount versus the actual costs. And I'm wondering if either our attorney or finance director can speak more to that, because I remember being in some of the audit conversations that I think I was the only council member present for, that might also provide some additional context for council, particularly our newer members, but I think it's a good reminder for all of us. So anyhow, I'm wondering if somebody can speak a little bit more to why it's important to fund the accurate cost, other than in respect to the general fund and not trying to subsidize the program.
Do you want to start with Serena, and then Shada, if you have anything to add? Is that all right, Serena? Okay.
Yeah, good evening. So I can speak to that question, Councilmember Carr. During the city's audit, they do review all of the costs that are associated with the lodging tax fund. It is a special revenue fund, and so it's important that those funds are utilized in accordance with the RCW that's set out from the state. And so for that reason, it is important that we track and do account for that, and that we have that prepared and ready for the state auditor's office, and they will review that for reasonableness and check to make sure that those tasks were performed on behalf of the lodging tax.
Just to follow up, sorry. So in the past, what had happened, my understanding, my recollection is that, essentially, we the city would propose a set rate that wasn't reflective of necessarily the accurate cost, which is why this proposal that is in front of us was at such a higher dollar amount. Is that a true statement? Am I on the right track there?
That's correct. Yeah, the flat rate was approved by the committee in 2015. It was slightly increased in 2016 or 17, and it remained that flat rate until 2025, when it was increased to try and reflect some of the actual costs. And so what this new amount reflects are the total costs that are going into the lodging tax fund.
And then my question on sort of the legal end of things is whether or not there's any kind of risk that we run, and either with the state auditor's office or with any kind of our funds around choosing to allocate a different amount than we accurately incur.
Good evening. I think the accuracy of what is reflected needs to be there, which is to say JLARC will look at the files just as has been described, and we do need to show that the funds were used in the ways that we said and the amounts that we said. But beyond that, there isn't a concern with covering the costs.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. We kind of talked about this in the past, and I had the opportunity to vote on this as a member of LTAC in the fall, and supported at that time and continued to support funding the full program costs. And I think I do really appreciate staff providing us with a couple of different options. In fact, I had suggested, and I support, that if we are unable to fund LTAC in the amount of the adequate and accurate cost, that we should find other ways than subsidizing that program through the general fund. Particularly, as we know, we are in a bit of a budget crunch. And I don't think that that is necessarily getting better. And I think that if we as a council are unwilling to spend, to capture those costs that we're incurring through this program, then we should find a way to reduce that. One of the big concerns I have, however, in the staff proposal in the detailed program reductions is around removing the legal department's review of LTAC. And I want to provide a little bit of my reasoning to council. I was on LTAC when we didn't have a legal review, and it was an unmitigated disaster. And this isn't to disparage anybody. I think it caused a lot of confusion, particularly at the committee level, because as much as I think we all would hope that the RCWs are clear, I don't think that this RCW is clear, and I think it's vague and needs substantial rewrite by the state. That aside, all to say that there have been many different interpretations over the years, and council has seen some of the emails from committee members who have had differences of opinions about whether or not an application fit within the legal confines of the RCW. Like, regardless about the program, like our program costs that we've incurred, the program applications like, Faro and, the Story People and GoPA, all of that kind of stuff, all of the sort of regular stuff. And I'm mentioning it because, again, what the legal review really helped with is determining, like, is this valid? Is this not valid? Does this fit? Does this not fit? Because there are nonprofits that apply, there are clubs that apply, there are for-profits that apply. Like, it really runs the gamut. And I think it's been very helpful to have that baseline of our attorneys being able to just weed out the folks who, for whatever reason, are just ineligible. And I would really caution us from going back to the way it was, because that confusion caused legitimately hours of time and discussion that I really would not wish upon anybody in the future. And because of my sort of, almost feels like a little bit of PTSD around that, I think that if we do go with some version of option B, I think that we should continue to, at the very least, have the legal departments continue to review the LTAC documents before the committee meeting, or before those applications are sent to the committee for review. Those are my initial comments.
Thank you. We'll go to Mark and then Amy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Carr, because I had some similar questions and I wanted to, that perspective was valuable, and I'd like to get the perspective of these two similar questions from staff. What legal risk does the city take on if option B is adopted, and what issues, if any, has the legal department identified during the application process that it has helped to remedy?
The legal risk associated with option B, was there something in particular that you had in mind? Because as I understand option B, what we're doing is accepting the proposed allocations from the committee and then continuing to add, almost on a policy level, this percentage that covers city costs, all of which there is basis to do legally.
In Table 4, Program 1 reduction, it lists remove the legal department's review of all LTAC and LTAC's documents. And then in Program Reduction 2, no participation by the legal department in any LTAC meetings. So I'm wondering.
I see. Okay. I misunderstood the question. So the legal review, the function that we have been serving is, as was mentioned earlier, making sure that the entities that are being, the requests that are being reviewed fit into both the purpose of the grant funding, but also there are some very specific bits of information that are supposed to be provided. And so what we've been doing is making sure that that is all there for a complete application. So in other words, it saves the committee some time from reviewing documents for entities that are not eligible, and also having issues later for people contesting whether applications that have been submitted should have been reviewed because they were not complete in some way. So I think at the end of the day, the biggest benefit is saving a lot of time for what the committee reviews and not having grants made that then have to be undone because they are not in strict conformity with the requirements of the statute.
Thank you.
Amy.
Thank you. Excuse me. Maybe a couple of clarifying questions. For should option 2 or B or whatever we're referring that to, it says, should the recommendation stand, nearly $60,000 will be basically subsidized by the general fund. Is that and then going forward these reductions? I don't know if I'm looking at. Correct, you said. Okay. And I guess I just want to say out loud, the reductions are 1, to remove the legal department's review of all LTAC documents. 2, no participation by the legal department in any LTAC meetings. Limit the number of LTAC meetings per year to a maximum of 2. Have only 1 round of RFPs for funding per year, regardless of any funding levels, and that reimbursements will not be processed if the recipient fails to submit an invoice to CED within 90 days from the date the original payment for the goods or services were made. That is in the packet. I just wanted to read that out loud for people who are not following along. That feels really unacceptable, those reductions. Again, not as a member of LTAC ever. Feels like thankfully now. Reading the emails that come in after LTAC makes decisions or have decisions to make, these reductions seem just, well, I'll say it again, unacceptable. And so that's concerning. I also really very much would love to not take money from the general fund for really any reason other than public safety, to enhance our public safety programs. And so with that said, at this point, I am hopeful that we as a council will support option 1 and happy to make that motion if I was the last one with my hand up.
Okay. Yeah, we can continue the conversation. Even if the motion is made, you can still ask questions if you have questions about option B. So it's fine. Go ahead and make the motion.
Okay. I'd like to move to modify the March 12th, 2026 LTAC recommendation as allowed by RCW 67.28.1817, parentheses 2, to fully fund all requests for round 2, including the city's requested program oversight costs for an updated 2026 lodging tax fund budget of, oh my goodness, $1,876,045, and to request the finance director to include this item in the next formal budget amendment for 2026.
Second.
All right. Okay, so you spoke to your motion before making it, and I saw John has a hand, and Drew and Latricia, and then I'll go. Okay, so we'll go John, Drew, Latricia. Go ahead, John.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So I guess my question is, we have all these reductions in program for option B, and the LTAC committee recommended essentially not funding $58,000 of the ask. So my question is, will these cuts make up for that unfunded portion? And so I look at this, we requested about $78,000 from the LTAC to fund this, and they're only recommending $20,000, right? So that's, to me, quick math, $58,000, round it, $60,000, right? So my question is, are these program reductions what is going to be cut if we don't fund the full thing? And if we're subsidizing it out of our general fund anyway, why are we cutting the program reductions anyway? That's my question.
So council, I think the answer is yes. Those are the reductions that staff would plan. Should we be in a position to make those reductions? I think I don't want to lose sight of the motion on the table is in support of option A. So I don't want to portray that that's what we're discussing right now as reductions. However, based on staff analysis, the reductions would eliminate those things that you see in table 4. Did I answer all your questions or?
Well, I guess my question is, do those reductions equate to $58,000 that isn't being funded by the LTAC committee, that the recommendation?
That's correct. That's our estimate that they do.
And so if we approved option B and we're saying we have to subsidize it from our general fund, wouldn't those things not get cut? Because we're subsidizing the difference from our general fund, so we could keep those items. We'd just be getting the $60,000 from a different place.
I think we're saying we're not going to subsidize it. Subsidizing it with the general fund is not an option.
So we would no longer be taking general fund resources and putting them in the direction of what you see to be removed in table 4. Those resources would no longer be allocated from the general fund.
Because when I read it, what I got from it was, well, we have to subsidize from our general fund. So to me, that was, oh, we're going to make up these different, that's what my question was, because I was trying to clarify where the number came from and if we're going to subsidize it. So that answers my question.
As a point of information, I think to clarify, John, you're right. This is money that has already been spent in the 2025 budget. So there's no going back and determining what can be cut from last year. So if we do not accept the motion in option A, we have subsidized that fund. It won't go back. But in looking at what the composition of the LTAC is and how those votes have been made, it's likely to say that this issue won't be resolved. And so the potential cuts relate to what is going to happen in 2026 funds based on what we know in the 2025 funding, right? So either, so I think there is a little bit of those funds, that have already been spent. We have to, do something about it. And moving forward, what do we do to make sure that those funds aren't, frankly, so that we don't continue to have this conversation every year?
Thank you for the clarification. Drew.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with, I guess, a couple of statements. So those who are listening, either remotely or in person, understand that I also understand what I'm saying. But yes, the city can 100% through the RCW apply for our own LTAC. That is truthful. That is correct. That is accurate. Yes, the LTAC can make a recommendation to the city council. We can't give money that wasn't approved, i.e. if Joe, nope, that's actually a person who talked earlier today, Jill applied LTAX at $0, we can't override that. If Jill applied, got $1, we can override that and give it more. That is how, through the RCW, we could grant additional funds to the program oversight budget. I applaud staff for doing this. I have publicly and repeatedly stated that I am a firm believer in go for grants. It is a force multiplier. When you're in a small area, go find grants so we can pay for things. I'm waiting to hear back for some private grants for my business as I speak. Yay, grants. Having said all of that, my only concern is I recognize how contentious this is. And for that, for me to be able to support it, I need something better than a 3-column table of position and hours. I need to be able to look anyone in the public in the face and be like, yes, it really does take 335 hours to do it. I'm not questioning staff's numbers. I'm not questioning staff's either hour numbers or budget numbers. I'm not questioning that. What I need is better documentation so I can very easily and plainly support that. And so unfortunately at this time, I wouldn't be able to support this. Should this option not go through, I greatly encourage staff, and since we can't direct staff in this way, encourage staff to figure out a good way to really drill in and track that so that way there's no concern, there's no question of, no, it really does. I mean, just doing the math in my head, 40 hours, give or take per grant, that actually sounds about right. Because I recognize the fact that, first off, I think we should reduce it personally, but reimbursements will not be processed if the recipient fails to submit an invoice to CED within 90 days from the date the original payment for the goods or services was made. The reason why that would be a reduction is because, oops, I forgot to fill out the paperwork. Cool, we, the city, are chill and we'll just keep coming because we want to give you the money. And so we will keep following up with you and poking and prodding to make sure you actually do the work. Problem is that's staff hours. It is. So if we just stop doing that, which I'm of the mindset that if I'm giving you free money, it's tax money. If I'm giving you free money, then you should at least be able to just do the paperwork and turn it in on time, is my personal opinion. But I recognize that in all of our programs, the city and city staff go out of their way to try to help recipients of whatever program it is that we are talking about, whether it's LTAC or something else. And so, but that's where one of those reductions are. That's why there's more hours, and it's not as simple as I took an application and I agreed to it and passed through the funds. So I recognize that 40 hours per grant, especially with heavy legal oversight, I would potentially throw out as another cost reduction, because I'm also just pro cost reductions in general, that while I don't want zero participation of the legal department, it is possible the legal department would only need to be called in during the actual LTAC meeting, or if the committee is unsure of whether or not one of them.
Nathan, you're unmuted.
Okay, not me. I would potentially recommend that legal gets pulled in during the meeting itself, and unfortunately it would be a cold request of opinion, but that would potentially save staff time from reviewing every single applicant, and instead, if the committee is unsure about one of them. This is speaking from someone who does not serve on LTAC, by the way. Anyway, so to put all of that together, where I currently sit, I fully support all of this in idea. I recognize our legal ability to do it. I recognize staff's ingenuity to be able to not steal from, wrong phrasing, to not use from the general fund. But I need better documentation to be able to explain to people why these hours exist. I recognize it. Nobody else does. And that's the problem with trying to convince people to be okay with us spending the money. So I will currently vote against the motion that's on the table.
Latricia.
All right. I guess I'm curious about, I see some of the numbers of the grants. Some of the grants are $5,000. Some of the grants are $3,000. Some of them are much larger, but the city already has kind of a contracting policy where you kind of have your simple contracting. I'm basing this, I'm assuming, I don't know your exact contracting policy to the T, but I'm assuming that there's a simple contracting policy that anything over at a certain level doesn't need formal review. It's just a simple threshold, like $7,500. That it doesn't go through the legal process, and that it's approved by a supervisor and things like that, and that they determine if a contract is complete. So I'm looking at some of these contracts that these applications that do come through, and wondering if there's a different way to approach the contracts based on the cost and the amount of thorough review that contracts obtain, because a $3,000 grant may not be or application may not be as complicated as a $200,000 application that may come through. And I think that if we look at that, we can probably find a bit more efficiencies in there. And I did have a question. I was wondering, Nathan, can you provide us, or Ben, can you provide us, or somebody provide us an example where a contract has the contracts that have come through, are they creating problems? And how often did those problems occur? Was it just one contract? Was it two contract? Councilmember Carr talked about it, and I'm just like wondering, do we still have that problem today in 2026? My other question is, how many more meetings are scheduled in 2026 for LTAC? I mean, I know that LTAC, you guys have ramped up, you guys have done training, and we're not talking, that's not on here. And that's time spent by staff training the applicants and providing those grant training opportunities for people. The meeting minutes, and as it was indicated, following up as Councilmember Schwab talked about, following up on emails. That's all time spent that we don't see behind the door, and it's happening where we can't see it. So I'm just wondering if there's some efficiencies on maybe identifying a minimum grant amount level that really needs review, or as has been recommended, that our legal only sees the applicants they see the actual contracts, not all of the applicants as they come through. And maybe if there is an issue with one, that one gets routed to legal for review instead of reviewing all applicants to determine which ones are complete and weeding them out. So I guess maybe Nathan.
So I'd be happy to start that. And I think important to share that currently all contracts for lodging tax are reviewed by the legal department as well as all applications. And that's actually specified by city council policy through the resolution that council passed after the work that the lodging tax committee did to create that policy, present it to council. And so that has been fully adopted by council. That's the practice that we're following today. Absolutely, we're always willing to look at creative ways to simplify a contract approach and try to address some of the uniqueness that we see in the various applications as well as entities that we end up contracting with. I'm hoping that Ben Broderick can speak to some of the history as far as complexities that we've seen in contracts and some of the past practice scenarios that you're aware of.
Yeah, certainly. So the contract process, it went from something that was a wet contract prior to 2020 to something that's digital, but I don't believe that made anything more simple. In some ways or fashions, it's made it more complicated. We use DocuSign for our contracts. So we really emphasize to all of our applicants, especially in training, that the council award for your funding is not the end of the process. It's where it starts. It's where the actual work begins. That's how most grants work. And so we reach out 3 or 4 times prior to the council meeting just to gear everybody up. But when it comes to contract execution, there may be situations where we need to follow up multiple times to make sure that somebody has it in their inbox, that they are signing it, because the applicant is the first signatory on our contracts. And so the process can't start until an applicant has initiated that process by signing the document. And then there's also past the contract process, the reimbursement process. And that's the same situation where we do have stipulations in our contracts that things need to be submitted at specific times. There's time periods, whether it's an event or it's it's like a year-long, periodic reimbursement process. But, that we want to make sure that, we have deadlines for when we need these payments to be made. And sometimes it takes all the way until the first 2 months of the next year to get somebody to request the reimbursement. And then we have to go through the process of processing that reimbursement. And that, in that case, that can also take a lot of staff time because they have to go back, they have to do work to go into the previous year's financials and make sure that all of those things are documented for auditing and that sort of thing.
Are there reports that are due by the applicants at the end of the year too that staff have to again review and approve as part of the auditing process?
There are. The Joint Legislative Audit Review Committee requires that the city submit specific information from all of our applicants. We even do it to make sure that there's certain specifications that they're looking for tourism, like where somebody's traveling from. Is it further than 50 miles? How are they staying here? How long are they staying here? And those sorts of things. So it can be an educated guess, but they do need to document how they're providing that information. And we're now also asking for a report that we've created so that we have more information for us about how the event went or the money was spent and how it helped with their organization, how it benefited from it.
So not only are you chasing, staff have to chase down sometimes invoices. We need the information to pay you. So I also know what it's like to chase down data for reporting. So you collect their reports and then you have to incorporate their reports into one final report, again, taking staff time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, can you kind of just estimate, is it like 20% of the applicants that you're usually chasing down information, or 90% of them really turn it in on time really good? Or, some of us procrastinate and wait till the last minute. Is it a 50? That would be helpful to understand your time and, again, how staff are spending their time working with the applicants also behind the scenes.
Yeah, I can't speculate exactly, but I can tell you that I only know a handful that when the event happens, I know that report's coming in directly afterwards. Like, they're on the ball. We don't have to worry about reaching out to them. So that reaching out does happen often.
And little questions here. And do you think it's been helpful since the legal review has occurred, since we initiated it, that it has been helpful to speed up or provide efficiencies in the overall system through the applications? Or do you see a benefit of looking at the dollar value and saying that certain dollar values maybe don't need that high level of legal review?
I think it 100% has helped the process, especially for the Lodging Tax Committee and for the City Council, because the applications that may be in question, a committee member may have doubts about something and they have their own opinions. Well, our legal department doesn't feel that way. They feel that it meets the letter of the law and we can move forward. So it's taken a lot of that guesswork out of the process, and it's really helped to provide legitimacy to it as well.
I really appreciate you answering my questions, even they may be small questions. I just as a statement, I don't think that, if there's a funding that can fund the city's participation, and again, our general funds, there's a high demand through public safety, fire, parks and rec, and we hear a lot of demand asking for those things. And the general funds are shared funds. And if I've been on the other end of managing grants, and I know all the little details and stuff. And when you have each applicant can be considered a grant in its own, just managing it, it is a lot of time. So I do support option A. I really appreciate your feedback about the legal review. I was kind of thinking that maybe there's some efficiencies there, but I think as we go down the road, maybe we can look at, maybe in the future where there might be efficiencies. And as you guys track it, you may see that, well, we don't need to spend all the time here because our staff are getting so good and the community is understanding, what can be funded and what can't be funded. So I do support A, because I think our general funds need to be set aside for what we need them to be set aside for.
All right, I have 3 hands up for second round, but I haven't spoken yet. So I'm going to take my turn and then I'll go back around to Amy, Mark, and Navarra. So one of the things that I'm hearing from staff that is really important to me is the level of customer service that we're providing for our applicants. And I gave an example in the lodging tax in that committee meeting that without getting into specifics, I had heard about a grant applicant for the county who lives more than an hour away and they have to turn their applications in person, went with their application. Oh, well, you need to fix this. Had to go away and come back 3 times. And I would much rather have a solid amount, like there's staff time dedicated to helping that person not make 3 trips to Port Angeles from more than an hour away. Obviously that won't happen here because we're all within the city limits, but I think we're being asked often to compare our lodging tax to the county lodging tax. And I think there are just things fundamentally that aren't the same. And also from what I'm hearing, some people prefer their application process, but I also think we are providing better customer service. We're providing the level of staff time that we're providing is also making sure that we are sure that we're going to have good audits because we're doing the right paperwork and tracking. I think, we have grants coming in based on estimates for cost, which is functionally what this is. And if the actual cost is less, then the actual cost will be less, but we got to estimate for the budget. And so I think staff has done a very comprehensive job of giving us a good estimate. I am with everyone else in not being in favor of continuing to subsidize LTAC with the general fund. We have lots of other things outside of what we're currently doing with general fund that are being asked of us, and subsidizing tourism, while it's important to our economy, it does not seem like the best use of that. I think the other thing that was raised in the meeting that I want to address with regard to the number of staff that are at the meeting, this last meeting, it was called out, oh, you have so many staff here, but some of the staff were applicants and that's why they were there. They weren't there in their staff, they're not there to support LTAC. They were there because their application was before the LTAC. And in fact, it was very valuable that they were there because they were able to answer people's questions like everybody else. And so I think that's an important note that was called out during public comment. And this extrapolation that all of those staff are in a meeting 12 times a year, which is not true because LTAC doesn't meet every month. In fact, they meet very infrequently. And so I just think that's an important piece to note because it was called out. And so we don't have generally half the staff at the meetings. We had more staff this time because they were applicants. And not the staff time application, but they had actual project applications in. So all that to say, I don't need to repeat the things other people have said. I am in favor of option A, and I trust that our staff does continue to look for efficiencies and will continue to find efficiencies. And I think we've made some pretty significant improvements in the application process and changes. And so as those continue, people will be more comfortable with them. We do get a lot of repeat applications and maybe it'll go down. And that's a value of like, we're covering the cost and we can reevaluate that like we do with every budget cycle. And so I will stop there and go on to go back around, see where I found my note of who. I will go to Amy and then Mark and then Navarro.
No, thank you.
Okay. Mark.
Question for staff. Are there reasons to follow up with an applicant for invoices or other data that is not related to procrastination? Point is, I think when people look at the review from legal department, they may be thinking, well, you applied for this, didn't turn these things in on time or didn't provide this documentation, and now the city is incurring the time to track you down and get it. And I imagine that certainly happens, but I imagine there are also other reasons. And that is my question. Is there reasons other than simple procrastination?
So council, I'd like to start that one because I think one thing that we ought to be doing tonight is just celebrating how successful the lodging tax funding allocation has been over the years. And I think as you look at the policy that council has created, council's done a really great job of recognizing how critical it is to get new events on a regular basis, which means for us that oftentimes every year we're seeing a handful of brand new events, people who have decided to take the initiative to start something up. They haven't been through this process in the past, and they need help learning how to get through it. It might be as simple as helping them figure out how to get their W-9 form turned in so that when they turn in their invoicing, we can pay on it. It might be something that is as simple as helping them navigate a new DocuSign process that they've never seen before. I will also share that, one of the things staff is very open to and does a great job with is being willing to meet with incoming new events or even old, larger events to help them plan for and think about their request to lodging tax moving forward. So I'm really proud of what staff does and the service that's provided along the way. And I think it's important just that we are embracing the new and innovative events that are coming our way. And that takes a little bit more support of some of the participants as we move along. And I'm sure staff may have additional comments. Shannon.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo everything Manager West said. We do have Courtney here who meets regularly with these applicants and sits down with them constantly. We have many new events coming in that we are having to walk through what constitutes a complete application for this. Again, the W-9 comes up a lot. It's a lot of different items that they've never walked through, and it's can be complex process to a new business or a new event coming in. Happy to follow up or have Courtney answer any more if you have further questions.
No, thank you. That answers my questions. And this was not coordinated, but I appreciate the assist. Good customer service ensures a successful application process. Successful application process is crucial to event success, and event success is a success for our community. I will be supporting option A.
Thank you, Mark. Navarro.
I also just wanted to follow up about a couple of comments that were made. I first wanted to just touch on some Mark's comments, and apologies. I hope staff, you don't mind my following up, but Story People of Clallam County, who we are preparing to fund tonight, I can't remember them applying in the past. They're new. Port Angeles Community Players had an unsuccessful application last year after a legal review, and I'm really glad to see that they have a successful application this year. And I think I'm calling them out specifically because I think over the last few years, as we just heard, we have seen countless events who are applying, and not just applying here for the first time. This is one of the first grants that many people in the community apply for, period. It's like their first time applying for a grant. My partner is one of those people, and he's not being funded tonight. But just to say that there are a lot of people where they're volunteers. This is the first. I feel really, really good about not just the customer service that our staff have been able to provide, but also have a low barrier to entry for success. And I think that is something that we have that I think, as Kate mentioned, the county doesn't have to the same degree. And they should modernize just like we have. But just to say again that I'm really grateful to see new applicants and people who are applying. And I think Story People of Clallam County is all volunteer, I think. And so they're one of those organizations that likely would be unable to apply for other kinds of funding, and that these grants where people can have success through the city, I think provide the confidence for folks to be able to apply and gain the skills to be able to have successful grant applications at the county or at the state or private foundations or what have you. I also think just Latricia, to go way back to some of your points, like Story People of Clallam County has a pretty low grant ask, but what we've seen in the past, and this has been sort of a shift we go through at different points in different application periods, is not to call out anybody specifically, but Wanda Fuqua Foundation for the Arts, like, do we want them to apply for every concert on the pier separately or concerts on the pier together? In our finances, we're approving funding from LTAC to in the expenditure report from LTAC to the baseball tournaments. And in the past, we've asked them to apply for each tournament separately. And then this last couple of years, we've said, like, that's too much work. Just put them all into one thing. 9 events for $10,000 each. Like, just do an application for $90,000. We appreciate you, right? And so I think if we changed that, what we would have is incentivization for people to have these lower asks, and then it actually provides more work to staff and the committee, because then you're having to review each application. Like, again, Lori Mittman puts in like 4 or 5 applications, which is great. Victoria Jones with the marathon does 4 or 5 events, and sometimes those individual events are kind of small dollar amounts, but collaboratively, when they're all put together, they're fairly large. And so we've had some incentivization over the years to sort of do one way or the other. And I think it's sort of this give and take about what do we want to prioritize and incentivize. And I think it's just helpful maybe for folks to know that those are things that, like, certainly myself, Ben and Courtney have had conversations about when I was the chair, to talk through what's working well, what can we be more efficient in, and how do we streamline this process for everybody so that, so that these folks don't have to put in 10 different applications in order to make the review potentially easier. Anyhow, so I just wanted to share that I think those are really valuable things and valid things, and provide the context of how I think we have landed in different ways. I lastly wanted to just say that, kind of to my point of information earlier, I also think this is likely going to be an issue that keeps coming back to us. And I think that there is value in talking about, separate from funding the allocation tonight, what are we going to do in the fall? And are we going to set a policy, some kind of policy where we just say, we're funding, like, we just fund this in the amount that we are? Or are we going to encourage staff and the chair of LTAC to look at ways to make some program reductions, particularly through looking at only one round of funding, because I know how much time that takes, or limiting the number of LTAC meetings. Personally, I think 2 is fairly limited, so maybe more than that. But what are those meaningful ways? What are we going to do when this comes back around? Because I think it will. And so while I don't have a clear motion formulated, I think I would just encourage us maybe a little stronger than just continue to work on efficiencies, but actually consider some proposals maybe that do come back to council at some point around what does that look like, even if it's just for this year. What are those things that might be meaningful or might not. But I think it's worth trying.
All right. Any last? Okay, John, go ahead.
Figured everyone made their positions clear. I might as well make mine clear. So, I can appreciate all the extra staff time that happens. My job, I get piled on with a whole bunch of stuff, and there's more and more and more. However, my biggest issue is just we have a committee for a reason, and we apply in these community volunteers that come in and have way more experience with this than I could ever do. And they understand the aspects of what they're doing, in my opinion, and they didn't fully fund this. And I am totally of the opinion that if they have a robust conversation and they decided it was contentious and they only funded so much, that I'm more apt to go with the recommendation, because my fear is that if they came back, as Councilman Carr said, with recommendation, it'd be like, well, why would we even do that when our recommendations are just overdone anyway? It's like council do what they want. So I just feel like our advisory boards and our community boards are a vital part of this process of community involvement, and we have a hard time getting people on those boards anyway, right? We're going to appoint some permanent appointments in our consent agenda, which is great, but we didn't have them right away. So my only problem is that we're like overriding a board that we appointed based on their qualifications and approved them to be there. So I'm not saying that staff shouldn't doesn't do all this work. And I know it costs more, everything costs more, but just for that one aspect of it, I'm not going to support this tonight.
All right. Go ahead.
Nathan, can you clarify? We did pass the resolution, which is identified in this packet, 02-2026, to revise the lodging tax advisory to 12%. Isn't that standing from here on out? I mean, like next year it will be 12%, that we don't have to ask for it?
That is correct. So the latest resolution passed by council will be standing policy until such time that council approves a new policy or passes a new resolution, if that makes sense.
Okay, so that's helpful. So from here on out, it will be that until it changes. All right, thank you.
All right, I think we should probably vote. I will say that it was a 4-2 vote, and I voted yes only because I wanted it to be something and not nothing. So it could have failed for a lack of a second. Just to John, to your point about, I fundamentally agree with your position, but on this particular issue, I do disagree. Yep, that's the value of voting and having a democratic process. So we have a motion to modify the March 12th, 2026 LTAC recommendation as allowed by RCW 67.28.12172 to fully fund all requests for round 2, including the city's requested program oversight costs for an updated 2026 lodging tax fund budget of $1,876,045, and request the finance director include this item in the next formal budget amendment to the 2026 budget. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. And we will take a 5-minute break and come back and finish our meeting. Thank you. reorganize very briefly. All right, so we are going to item J1, and I am going to turn it over to Director Curtin.
Good evening, Council. It is on behalf of the Public Works team, it is with great excitement that I have this contract to bring before you this evening. I'm going to go ahead and read the summary, and then I'll pause for questions before reading the final staff recommendation. So staff is seeking City Council approval to award a construction contract for the Schedule A and Additive 1 bid for contract 2026-01 to Interwest Construction Incorporated of Burlington, Washington, in the amount of $2,801,877.21, including applicable taxes, for the A Street Wastewater Capacity Improvement Project. This project addresses a high-risk capacity constrained segment of the sanitary sewer collection system. The project was advertised for construction bids, and Interwest Construction was the lowest responsive bidder. We had received 4 bids, I believe. Yes, 4 on page J3. This proposed project directly aligns with the strategic focus area number 4, infrastructure development, maintenance, and connectivity, and specifically furthers goal A, which was to ensure adequate wastewater capacity for future developments. Funding is available in the approved 2026 through 2031 capital facilities plan under the A Street Improvements Project WW0222 from 3 sources. The city was successful in obtaining Opportunity Fund grants, as you may recall, in the amount of $1,393,100. We also have an additional $500,000 in NICE funding, with the remaining funds coming from the Wastewater Utility Capital Project Fund. So with that, I would just say this has been a long standing need within the community. I know you're all well aware. We're really excited. We have other projects that are going, but this is certainly one of our high priority ones, which has been impacting the ability for future developments. So just so that people are aware, so this is on A Street. It starts right at the alley between 8th and 9th, and it's going to run all the way down 8th. And it actually, because of we're able to award the additive alternate, it's going to go ahead and terminate there at what would be 17th Street, which is in the middle of the Public Works Courtyard. So very excited. This is going to be a huge benefit to the city and the utility, and frankly, developers at large. And happy to answer any questions, receive any comments before I read the recommendation.
All right, and someone might beat you to it because they'll just make a motion and then you don't have to read it. All right, comments or questions from staff? John, go ahead.
So I'm very excited about this. When Scott and Public Works presented it at the UAC meeting a couple of months ago, it was, they thought this out, and this is totally important for our housing needs and our development needs and business. I just think I'm very happy this has fallen into place. We can award this contract tonight. I just can't talk enough about the importance of this project. So thank you, Scott, for your diligence. And I'm also glad that ICI, even though they're from Burlington, a lot of those jobs we're going to give, those people are local residents that work in the yard right outside of, right on the west end. So I'm happy that some of this money will go to local jobs and local people working on this project. So that's doubly happy to me. So I just wanted to make sure I said that, and thank you. And I'm very excited to see this a shovel in the ground and see what this does for our city.
Thank you, John. Other folks want to speak to this? Navarro, go ahead.
Well, I'll make the motion. So I move to award a construction contract for the Schedule A and Additive 1 bid to Interwest Construction, Inc. for the Con-2026-01 A Street Wastewater Capacity Improvement Project WW0222 in the amount of $2,801,877.21, including applicable taxes, and authorize the city manager to sign all contract-related documents, to administer the contract, and to make minor modifications as necessary.
I second that motion.
can I speak?
Yes, of
briefly?
course, please do.
I also think it's really very exciting to hear about this project. I'm also really very grateful to the county for awarding us through the Opportunity Fund. I think this is a great partnership opportunity. And I think it's always nice when we see some investment from the county in our city projects, particularly one that I think furthers shared goals around increasing both housing and economic development opportunities. Since I think, as Scott just mentioned, the terminus is in more of an industrial area than it is residential. So I think it's really, and I know that that capacity will extend far beyond what is just in that local neighborhood due to the ways that we connect. I also think, I always just go back to that presentation we received years ago, or maybe it was last year, but it feels like years ago, about our sewer and water infrastructure and sort of how old our pipes are. And I think that any project that we're able to do that doesn't just, fix an issue and keep things essentially the same, but also is able to modernize and expand, I think provides us with growth opportunities for the capacity we already have that wasn't even conceived of back in the early 1900s, but also provides us with those opportunities for growth and where we can think more strategically about how we're providing for our needs of today in addition to the needs of the future. So thank you.
Excellent. Latricia?
Oh, I just want to quickly say too, I think this is one of our projects on our 2-year strategic plan. So that's a good check mark off. So good job. I remember pushing hard for it with our other public works director. And he's just like, your new public works director is not going to like you. And I'm like, yeah, but we could do it, right? So good job, Scott, for
Thank you.
carrying the torch.
Thank you very much. And just to add, this one, this was literally the first grant presentation that I gave shortly after starting. I believe I started in September. I think I presented to the Opportunity Fund Board either late October, November, something like that. And a lot of folks put a lot of time to get to where we are today. Anina, our grant specialist, presented with me at that, was very heavily involved in the application process. And it should also be noted, we designed this, engineering staff designed this internally. This was not one that we utilized largely consultants for design. We did this in-house, which is something else to be proud of. Not everyone can say that. So just really proud of the group and the team. I know it took a long time to get here. Just really excited we got good bids and to be moving forward with this project. It's going to move pretty quickly too. It actually has a pretty short timeline. So you're going to see activity once it goes. The project's going to go very quickly. So our hope is by the end of the summer that this is going to be installed and we're moving on to the next one. So really look forward to it and appreciate the support from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Amy, go ahead.
I'll be really quick. I was also just going to make sure that you and your teams take the time to be proud of this work and getting here, because I also remember Mike Healy telling me all about how this project is, the most important project and need. And so to see you get it completed and have it all coming to fruition. And I'm going to say it about wastewater, kind of exciting. And it's a really big deal. And I'm just proud of the staff and the work all around. Today actually was a really big proud of the staff moment. And I'm looking forward to all the complaints about traffic and right, and all the cones and things like that. So this is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a wild guess that Mike Healy's probably listening as we speak right now.
I hope we invited him for this.
He is
hi, Mike.
He is in fact in attendance. So before he falls asleep, since he's now retired, I don't need to say anything more. I think everyone has already said what needs to be said. But I will just add that this was a project I talked about when I ran for county commissioner. It was one of those pivotal, if we can get this done kind of projects. And so really excited to be voting for it tonight. So we have a motion to award a construction contract for a Schedule A and Additive 1 bid to Interwest Construction, Inc. for CON-2026-01 A Street Wastewater Capacity Improvement Project WW-0222 in the amount of $2,801,877.21, including applicable taxes, and authorize the city manager to sign all contract-related documents to administer the contract and to make minor modifications as necessary. And while I think we have unanimous consent, it's going to be way more fun to vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. And that brings us to the end of our motion type business. And we finally have council reports. So I don't need everyone to go back 6 months. That feels like it's been 6 months since we had them. But we will go ahead and I will start with John.
Okay. All right. So since our last meeting, all right. So on the 14th, we had our Utility Advisory Committee meeting. We were given a presentation about the BPA Tier 2 stuff that is going to be coming to our council chambers soon. You know, it was kind of, and I'm sure Amy can talk a little bit more about this too, but you know, it's between two a rock and a hard place. So I do appreciate the thoughtfulness of the presentation. And I felt like I walked away with a little bit better understanding than I did when I was reading the jarble and the contract. So, but you know, electricity is a thing we need. Turns out, yeah, my kids need it a lot. Let's see here. On the 17th, I met with Colleen Macular at the EDC office to learn more about what they're doing, how they support the work we do here with economic development. I really thank her for her time. I learned about their 5-year plan. It was great to kind of just hear her perspective on just economic development. So I appreciated that insight. Yesterday, we had an MRC meeting. I'll let Latricia talk more about it, but I didn't know a lot about finding dead birds on the beach and how important it was and how fun it could be. So I really learned a lot yesterday. You may think it's funny, but I thought it was great yesterday. So moving ahead, tomorrow, there's a solid waste advisory committee meeting I'll be attending at the county commissioners, I don't know what we call it, chambers. On Friday, I'll be attending the Port Angeles Education Foundation Gala with my wife at the Field Hall and Event Center. On the 27th, I'm planning on taking a tour of the CRTC Center to learn more about what they're doing. They said if more than one of us want to go, they would be happy to do that. And there's no school on the 1st, so that'll be fun because we didn't have any snow days, so I get a day off. Yay me. And that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Amy.
Okay, I'm going to try to be just as concise. It looks like the last time I gave you guys council report was actually the second meeting in February. There are a couple of things that are still important that I want to share from that. I can't tell you when this happened, but in between then and now, I was able to be an observer at the active shooter drill, where everybody who wears a uniform basically and fits under first responder was involved up at the Peninsula College. OMC was involved, Life Flight was involved. I mean, we had park rangers, we had everybody. And for a couple of hours, they went through what they needed to do in the case of an active shooter. And it was really, impactful, more than I probably thought it would be, but it was just also just so reassuring. A couple of comments that were made from other observers were things like, here, it doesn't matter what color your uniform is, right? Like, so they all work together just so well, and really nailed it. I'm sure the chiefs maybe could, if they wanted to remember way back when, talk about what that experience was like. But it was really great to be invited and to be a part of that. And I appreciated being invited to do that. Clallam Transit has done a number of new and cool things. I think two that I want to just highlight is that they are putting together a community rider advisory committee, which I think is very cool. That's just sort of getting started. We're not getting membership just yet, but so that they can get the feedback from riders on what's happening, what needs to be changed, how can there be a better experience. And I just think that's a really good way about being a public utility. They also have rolled out their new routes. So there's some new, so if you're used to taking the bus, you probably have noticed those differences. But if you're not, you might want to check before you get on there. There's a bunch of new stops and new times to make it more, to hit those spots where the public has said they needed to hit. UAC, I think you covered that. That's been really interesting. And gosh, I know there's so much more, guys, but I think those are the important parts.
Thank you. Navarra. I'm going to also try to keep it short. I had the pleasure of attending the PRTPO meeting and retreat on Friday. And we had at least 2 hours of presentations and discussion around the FIFA World Cup. And I naively, before that meeting, thought Port Angeles, we're 3 hours away from Seattle. Drew is shaking his head. And what they told us, and I'm sure that Drew will have more to say, but what they told us in that meeting is that FIFA is telling everybody that within a 3-hour radius of Seattle, there's not going to be a single place of lodging available basically the whole summer. And so, man, we're 3 hours away from Seattle. So good luck to us. There's going to be minimum thousands of more people in addition to our regular tourist folks who are coming. I'm seeing Nathan and Chief Sharp nodding too. So I think, anyhow, I just sort of had that like moment of realization and panic on Friday that I wanted to share that I think it might be valuable to actually talk about as a city, as the region is preparing for FIFA to come. On the transit level, we talked about a couple of things, including the fact that right now, when you cross the Hood Canal Bridge, if you are a sailboat or a tall enough vessel, that basically the Coast Guard and the bridge is required to open, and they are making some serious reductions to that, which I'm not sure anybody else is a sailor, and it won't, that the part about the sailboats doesn't matter. But I think what's nice for all of us to know as drivers or transit users, people who drive across that bridge in whatever fashion, is that there's going to be 2 openings during the daytime and 2 at nighttime. So it's going to drastically reduce, and then that's in addition to whenever the Navy wants to go through. So just to say that I think that is, it's nice to know that WashDOT is also taking this very seriously, including the impacts around traffic and the wait times when the bridge is open. So I thought that would be good to share. And then also a number of different like transit systems, including Clallam Transit, are thinking about ways to maybe prioritize local riders since there's going to be a number of transit users, hopefully, who are coming through, particularly because there are going to be so many visitors from Europe who rely entirely on transit as modes of transportation. So thinking about ways that we can think through helping locals continue to get around in their normal fashion, while also knowing that our bus system is going from our bus system in Clallam, Jefferson, Kitsap are all going to be seriously, very heavily impacted by the way that tourism is just going to happen, and it's going to be different this summer as opposed to in I think other times. So I think that's just valuable for us to know going forward. I think there's going to be 4 games. I think it's like 1 or 2 in June, a couple in July, maybe 1 in August. But so anyhow, not to be sort of a panicky person for this one, but I think it might. Anyhow, I just wanted to put that on everybody else's radars and make sure that we're thinking about different ways we might be getting around this summer, since it seems like there's going to be significantly more traffic than in years past.
All right, Latricia, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. I could do that, but I'm just going to keep going to the left. I'm going to mix it up sometime, but Mark, go ahead.
Okay, I get to share some good news. It may have already been shared, but I'll share it here. Fireworks are back this year thanks to Astound Broadband. The World cruise ship, both are giving $11,000 each, and the city also thanks to our fire marshal, Joel McKean, Port Angeles, and of course the chamber. That's the fun stuff from the chamber. The pool, it closed and then it reopened. So I don't know, a lot of that information's data. Essentially what happened was plaster was failing, it was patched, and we're looking for more long-term solutions, maybe a different kind of covering that could last quite a bit longer. So more to follow on that. The pool has paused its shower voucher program for now. Homelessness Task Force, 2 board members were voted in, 4PA gave an update, part of what was talked about today. A new chair and vice chair were elected. Upcoming topics for the Homelessness Task Force are food bank presentation, prevailing wage, and therapeutic court presentations. Also sat in a meeting with Deputy Manager Goings and the CEO of Citizen Air and Colleen McAleer to discuss permitting process feedback. I found that meeting valuable. And I am hearing a steady stream of public safety concerns from constituents. Those concerns are taken seriously. Public's asking to feel safe in our community, and I look forward to the Public Safety Advisory Board work plan presentation and to discussions about how council can improve public safety in our community.
Thank you, Mark. Drew.
Yeah, like several of us, I'm gonna try to stick with just this month with the stuff. And I've actually been lighter than usual somehow. Marine Discovery groundbreaking, although I think most all of us attended that. We did have an ad hoc virtual meeting for the boards, committees, and commissions. So those of us who served on that, we specifically met for LTAC. The rest of them we were able to coordinate via email. I was able to participate in the chamber lunch this month. The guest speaker for that was the Marine Discovery. So I got to hear from both of that. I did get to attend Elevate PA as well. That's the downtown group that's tied to Waterfront District. I'm looking to see if there's anything specifically new. I think the stuff I want to bring up specifically for that is their Economic Vitality Committee. They're working on a vibrancy survey going out next week, and we want to try to do it annually. I'm speaking because I'm a member of the downtown, not because I serve on any of these things. Actually, maybe I do serve on Economic Vitality now. I think they asked me to participate and I showed up for a meeting. I might actually be on that one now. I should find out for sure at some point. It wouldn't be the first time I've ended up on a committee because I just showed up to a couple of meetings. Anyway, the purpose of that is kind of as a business, how do you think things are economically downtown? And that's the purpose of that. The other thing is there's a soft launch of the Meet Port Angeles website. They have been describing it as a proto-visitor bureau website. The purpose of this is not to compete against the Visit PA website that you might be familiar with through the Visitor Bureau. The purpose for this is specifically to be a landing page for the group that's going after conventions, to bring conventions to Port Angeles. And just as a quick heads up, if anyone kind of really stops and thinks about it, this is just a soft launch. Once it's up and going, it'll probably be 16, 18 months before we see any real traction on it, because most big conventions are figuring things out 12, 18 months out. So even if we have the committee up and going and we get confirmations for people, we've already missed 2026 for getting, because this is for larger corporate conventions, not smaller things. Later this week, I do have my NODC meeting. And then just going back to FIFA, yes, FIFA is actually a huge deal that will impact us. I've been getting updates on that through the OPTC, Olympic Peninsula Tourism Commission, for the last several months. So I've been kind of being kept up to date. If council wants to update, I'll throw Marcia under the bus and see if if council wants to, ask if staff wants to reach out to her and see if she has any interest in just giving, hey, we just heard about this, kind of an update for council so they have an idea of what's going on. There is a total of, I believe, 6 games. And to put in perspective of how big of a deal this is, the last update I got was every port and airport, so water or air, will be filled with private vehicles, including out here. So our airport will in all likelihood be filled. The World ship that's coming, the one that's so large, it's it's either the only or the largest private yacht. So it's a cruise ship that you live on permanently. So you basically buy a condo on this. They're the ones who are footing the bill for a large chunk of the fireworks. They're here because of FIFA, is my understanding. Because there are some games right in the July 1st, July 6th timeframe. And so our understanding is even all the way out here, it's going to be busy, because for people who have money but can't get into Seattle, we're cheaper and have free transportation. And so, and it runs, the first game is June 15th. Last one in the Seattle area is July 6th. So it's going to be a 2 to 3 week period where it's going to be of just the games themselves and whatever sort of overflow we have on either side of that. Yeah, it's actually going to be a pretty big deal. And in all likelihood, there will not be any hotels anywhere for about at least a 2, maybe 3 week period. That is all the updates that I have for this evening.
Thank you, Drew. Patricia.
Thank you, everybody, for being so short and quick and just give me all the time in the world. I really appreciate it. So like Amy said, we haven't been able to have updates since February. So quickly, I mean, with a lot of us, we attended the Black Ball Ferry Crossing event back in February, which was great. Met with Sam Grillo also in February. We had a MRC meeting, and I just think it's really important to highlight some of the educational opportunities at these Clallam County MRC meetings. At that meeting, we had a presentation by Clallam County Emergency Operations Center. They provided an overview of what they would do in the event of an oil spill and what their role was. We also had a presentation by DNR on statewide kelp forest and eelgrass, and they've identified priority areas along the coast here on the Salish Seas, and they're looking at, conserving existing kelp and eelgrass. And we all know that those are vital. It's vital habitat for our forage fish, which brings us back to the presentation that we had last night at our Clallam County MRC by Coast, which talked about they have volunteers that are trained, and these volunteers go out and they walk the beaches, the public beach areas, and they look for dead seabirds. And some of the trends that they're seeing is why are seabirds dying? And some of those trends are because of bacterial infections that when they migrate and they get to a certain point, they spread that bacteria amongst all of the birds that have migrated and that are nesting in that area. Sometimes they find that it's because of the lack of fish, forage fish. So again, if we have healthy kelp and eelgrass, we have healthy habitat for our forage fish. Let's see. Again, February, we had a William Shore pool meeting where we actually talked about public employees benefit board program and making changes to our policies. I also participated, there was a shoreline, kind of an interagency meeting on how all of the different agencies like DNR, Department of Ecology, Army Corps of Engineer, and Collin County interact when there is like permits for bulkheads and emergency bulkheads, which kind of leads back to more my Collin County MRC event. I did attend the Elevate PA monthly meeting back in March. I wasn't able to attend in April. I had a conflict. Again, MRC, we held a joint meeting with Macaw and Puget Sound Recovery Fund to talk about pinto abalone and recovery efforts between the tribes and the project in our straits. And then in March, Collin County MRC, we had another really great presentation by Jamestown, Annie Raymond. She works on Olympia oyster restoration, and she talked about the project out there. The goal is to have a 1.5 acres of self-sustaining populations of native Olympia oysters. And darn it, we're already past it, but I want to say April 16th was Bull Kelp Day, but we've already passed that day. So I did attend Collin Public or the Transit Board meeting as an alternate a couple of times. We had a Strait Ecosystem Recovery Network meeting in March that I attended. And then another Strait Ecosystem Recovery Network Leadership Council meeting in March that I attended. I did attend the Marine Fair groundbreaking with Mayor Dexter and Councilmember Schwab. It was a very highly, I mean, there was a lot of people there. A lot of people are excited about this. So that was great to see. Also attended the, had a meeting with the interim director, Ryan, at the pool to talk about the applications that we've received for the part-time treasury position. And then attended an April 12th, North Olympic Land Trust had a Conservation Connections, their 18th annual event, where they announced that they are purchasing the Big Red Barn out there on Old Olympic Highway so that they can conserve, I think it's like a 136-acre farm for agricultural easement. So they purchased it, they'll put an easement on the land, and then they will turn around and sell that land with the easement to a farmer, somebody who is interested in continuing to farm that acreage. So that's pretty cool that that's not going to be short platted and into little plots and developed. It will continue to be maintained as farmland. And then again, last the MRC meeting. I also want to thank you for bringing up FIFA, because I think it's a good reminder too on how the city wants to also think about how we're going to manage water resources in our community. We already have a declared drought. We're low in snowpack. We're low in our rainfall for this year. So if we're going to have that many people, we really need to be conscientious about how we're going to manage water and when we're going to get notices out about shortages and what level we're at, and encourage members to really be conservative on how you're using your water. I sit on the Washington Water Trust, and one of the things that was discussed at that meeting this month was out in the Dungeness. They have received funding. A lot of it is foundation funds and funds from community or businesses that are trying to what do they call it? I'm not going to remember what it is, but there's over $565,000 for Washington Water Trust to develop multi-year lease agreements with the irrigators and the farmers that are using the water to choose to not lease. One is your base lease of 32 days. You choose not to use the irrigation water so you can keep water in the river, pulse flow events, substitution, things like that. So I think it's important that we as a community think about how we're going to use that water and how we're going to encourage our community to take care of the resource that we have, because it is a limited resource. And then I also wanted to announce that May 7th through the 11th out in Port Townsend. I know this isn't Port Angeles, but there is a global earth repair conference out there where they'll be having workshops, panels, discussions, networking, vendors, music. Topics will be climate change, carbon sequestration, restoration, rewilding, things like that, social justice, permaculture, things like that are on there. So that's out in Port Townsend, May 7th to the 11th, Global Earth Repair Convergence. So there we go. I am done from February to the other night. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I have more than I usually do, but we'll try to be quick. And I figure I'll tackle the things that have already happened in no particular chronological order, and then a couple things coming up. So I continue to serve on the as appointed with staff in the negotiations for the digital services contract, which has been sort of breakneck pace. So I'm glad to be doing it, and we'll be glad when we come to a resolution, because it's been lots of extra hours of meeting. I was privileged as an honorary board member to speak at the I was super quick. Tried to be defer to people who actually help get money and stuff for the groundbreaking for the Olympic Coast Exploration Center. And just for everyone's knowledge, the actual digging in that area will likely begin at the end of the summer. It was a sort of I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now, but the staff and the board felt like it was valuable to have it be a community event, and so wanted to do it before we have a lot of tourists so that it was really accessible to our community. So that was a resounding success, I would say. One thing that I just thought was interesting, because I learned it, didn't know this was a thing, so I will share with all of you. I don't know if any of you noted that we were trending on change.org, the petition website, regarding the boat launch. And they have staff that reached out to me as the mayor and said, do you want to make a comment so that people have some information? And thankfully, we had seen the press release from Parks, from Corey, some more information. So I was able to sort of rework that a little bit and share that with her so that she could get it out, which I think is really helpful, because people who are interested in that issue were in that space and could see the update where they might have missed it in other places. So I appreciated that they had that opportunity. And then I also participated as an observer in the mass casualty drill. It was on the 30th of March at Peninsula College over their spring break. 18 months of planning, lots of participation, really grateful for everyone practicing at Peninsula College as an opportunity to get used to that space in case anything ever happens there. And I will paraphrase a quote from Chief Sharp that came about in the after action. I felt really good about it. Same with Amy, felt like it was really encouraging as someone who has a level of responsibility for our community to see how well everyone works together and feel confident that we have people who will show up and do a good job in a really stressful situation, and appreciated there were a couple of things that were already like, ooh, we need to work on that for next time. And Chief Sharp said, and the good news is we did this today. So if we actually have to do it tomorrow, it'll be better tomorrow than it was today. And so that was really encouraging and interesting, and yeah, good learning opportunity. And I just want to note that it was not an event that anyone wanted generally open to the public. And so we invited 3 council members to not have to notice it as a public meeting. So that is why some people I was invited because I work there, and I invited the deputy mayor and Councilmember Miller, since she sits on the regionalization fire committee. So then let's see. So those are the things that have happened. Tomorrow night, I will admit that I don't know off the top of my head, but I need to because I'm supposed to be there at the beginning. The Navy Band is presenting at the high school in the gym. Finding a space was challenging because there's so many things going on in town. And it is a America 250 celebration, really focusing on the partnership between the Navy and Olympic National Park. And so I'm just going to go say a couple of introductory words, welcoming them here and thanking them for their partnership. And then on Friday, finally, the chiefs and I are going up for our meeting with the Mayor of Victoria, Mayor Alto, and their fire and police chief to talk about their community safety and well-being plan, see some of what they have implemented there, and hopefully we will bring some inspiring things that we have done, and we'll be inspired by some of the things that they have done. And this is a makeup for us. We were going to present at their community safety and well-being conference, but they planned it during the Coho Dry Dock. So this time we can actually get there. And that is all I have for now. So we'll go to Nathan. Oh, wait, sorry.
Can I take a quick point of personal privilege before you talk? Is that okay? Just one minute?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention this, but last week we had an unfortunate experience with the modified lockdown at the high school. And I just wanted to personally thank Officer Hooper and public and their coordination with the PAPD, with the school district, to make me and my staff, colleagues, and my students feel safe the entire time, because, you know, they were all asking if it was a drill and was serious. And I just think like that coordination and communication was really important. So I forgot to mention this. I want to personally thank Chief Smith, the department, and make sure Officer Hooper and our detectives get their due diligence, I guess, because it made me feel better knowing that they were there. And so I just want to thank you and everyone for that. It could have been way worse, but it was great. Kids got home safe. It was a win-win, so thank you.
Patricia?
I did have one question or comment, and maybe Nathan. Oh, Corey's back there. You're so quiet, Corey. I'm concerned. I think we're hosting a Babe Ruth Championship or World Series at our ball fields, and if we are, I'm concerned about the sidewalks and the walking paths. My grandson is playing baseball, so I'm now going back to the baseball fields, and well, the unevenness, and because of my hip, I have to use a cane, and it was, and my father was there, who's 88, and he's also unsteady on his feet, and there was a couple times that he was stumbling because of that. And also it feels really crowded and dense on that very narrow walking path. I felt like I was holding up everybody trying to get to my spot and stuff. So I was just wondering, is there any plans to improve that walking path before the
state tournament? Yeah. Yes, we are having another state tournament this year. I can work with NOBAS on that. I know we did a little bit of work on that sidewalk after we did the driveway, but it was just more of like patchwork.
Yeah, I would say it just needs to be torn out and replaced. It's, yeah, I didn't feel steady walking on it because just there were so many people. And if we're going to have a World Series, there's going to be a lot more people. So I think, I don't know. I would like to see us pull it out and just replace it if we can fund it.
I was going to ask, I actually have a crew later this week that's going out to grind a few that are uneven. But it sounds like this might be more involved.
Can I just interject here?
Yeah, it's
this
just
feels like
little.
new business. This isn't on the agenda. So if we can like update for, I think it's a reasonable question, but if we can do like some kind of staff update about it, or an email with information to us, that would be helpful rather than, I don't want it to become a new item. But thank you for your question. Nathan.
So council, and particularly Councilmember Suggs, we'd be happy to look into that issue and let you know. This evening, I have some good news to share, and that we heard last week from Washington State Department of Transportation that Federal Highways Authority has determined that the originally executed term sheet is sufficient for the RAISE grant, that the amendment that they had asked us to sign is not going to be required. That's a really great bit of news that we received last week. Want to give council a heads up that on May 5th, we plan to have the discussion about attendance of the AWC Summer Conference that takes place from June 23rd to June 26th in Spokane, Washington. So start thinking about whether that's something you might want to attend so that you can bring your input to the meeting on May 5th. And then council, finally, I want to make sure on your radar is the Tuesday, April 28th work session from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for the discussion of the Port Angeles Police Department resources, particularly relative to House Bill 2015. So that's next Tuesday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And council, that's all I have for you this evening.
All right, thank you. That brings us to our second public comment period. And as usual, we will do in council chambers first and then go online. We still have the hand from the earlier one, so we'll go to that person first. So if you are in the virtual meeting and wish to make a public comment, please raise your hand now, and then we'll go to in-person comment. Let me get my phone ready and get my words back. So go ahead when you're ready, John.
John Ralston, City of Port Angeles resident. Glad to be here again tonight. I appreciate the two people at the far left of the council here who asked a few more questions about LTAC, in my opinion. The amount of hours that the city is charging for 1,300, 1,400 hours is way too much. It's excessive. And I hope you continue to find some methods, including using AI, to reduce the number of hours that the city is charging. I want to read a few things from Strong Towns. It deals with, again, with maybe policy that was being enacted when you're even considering things for LTAC. This is from a February 18th article, 2026. The paperwork problem behind the housing shortage and affordability. When cities talk about the housing crisis, the conversation almost always drifts towards policy. We argue about whether regulations are too strict or not strict enough, and whether developers are greedy or government incompetent. But on the ground, much of the housing we say we want isn't being blocked by bad policy. It's being blocked by something harder to see. The everyday processes cities use to review and approve small projects, not only in housing, but in LTAC. I can go on and read more and more, not because there's opposition or failed rezoning, but because routine procedures treat small homes like major developments. A $3,000 grant for money in LTAC versus a $200,000. Same or similar treatment as this article is talking about in Strong Towns. Goes on, et cetera here. These reviewers are not empowered to interpret intent or apply judgment. Their role is to ensure strict compliance with standards written for different kinds of projects. And I think that's what's happening also with LTAC. None of this is malicious. It's simply the expected outcome of a system optimized for control. Government likes control. I'd encourage you to, what we need is a sense of proportionality. I would encourage you to go to Strong Towns and pull up the article and read it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else for public comment? I imagined that's why you were here, but didn't want to call you out just in case you were just listening. And just a reminder to state your name and whether or not you're a resident. And
My name is Brandy Collins, and I am a Port Angeles business owner and a resident of the city. Regarding the recent conversation about the city potentially approving a designated homeless encampment, that conversation should be conducted within the perimeters of the city's municipal code. According to Chapter 12.04.080, the municipal code states, and I quote, "It shall be unlawful for any person to camp in any city park, city facility, or city-owned property without prior authorization from the director." The code goes on to clarify in 12.04.050 that the director shall promulgate regulations for the conduct of organized activities in city parks and attendant facilities in accordance with the provision of this chapter and other city ordinances. The promulgation of these regulations shall be for the purpose of achieving the following ideals. First, ensuring the safety, comfort, and convenience of the public, and ensuring the activities within an area are in accordance with the purpose for which a particular area was developed. Public encampments, they are notoriously riddled with substance abuse issues. Tumwater Truck Route is a real-time example of the comorbid relationship between drug use and homelessness. This is not a criticism of the homeless. It is a simple observation. Tumwater Truck Route is littered with harm reduction paraphernalia. I live on that side and I drive it daily. From 101 all the way to the waterfront, despite the amazing work being done by 4PA to continually clean up this trash. The high-density homeless population in this area and the enormous amount of drug paraphernalia are directly correlated. It is not coincidental. According to our police chief, just in his daily observation, about 95% of our homeless population is in active drug addiction. Chapter 12.04.100 states that activities not permitted in parks and on city-owned facilities and properties shall include possessing and or consuming intoxicating drugs or narcotics. Chapter 12.04.120 is titled Regulations Obedience Required. This is where the bigger picture comes into view. It states, all regulations under the authority of this chapter shall be obeyed by all persons using the parks and the recreation facilities of the city. The director shall have the authority to regulate activities when necessary, and it specifies clearly to prevent congestion and to secure maximum use of the premises for the comfort and convenience of the public. Any person violating any provision of this chapter is guilty of a misdemeanor and may be punished with a fine of $500 and imprisonment of up to 30 days for the first offense, a $1,000 fine and imprisonment for 90 days for the second offense, and a $5,000 fine and imprisonment for up to 364 days on the third offense. So to proceed with designated a public area as an approved homeless encampment would be the equivalent of aiding and abetting a crime. Hence the fines and the imprisonment outlined. Exceptions can be made, I'll make it quick. Exceptions can be made to these regulations by way of the director issuing a permit, but there's a catch. It states, and I quote, the director may issue a permit for an activity that varies from the terms and conditions of this chapter, provided that the public health, safety, property, and peace are adequately protected. Health, safety, property, and peace. Those have to take precedent. Thank you.
All right, we have 3 hands online, maybe 3 or 4. Hold on just a minute. All right, we will start. We have 3 hands online. We'll start with Stephen Paleo, and let me get the timer ready. And when you're unmuted, I will make sure we can hear you as per usual and then start your time.
Okay, can you hear me?
And hear you. Go ahead.
Great.
Timer.
Thanks. So look, I guess I just want to start. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, Stephen Vallejo. I live in the county. I have a couple of homes in the city of Port Angeles. I do contribute a lot in property tax dollars to the city. I want to start with what I didn't hear tonight. I didn't hear a single person ask, is the LTAC administration cost amount correct? Is it justifiable? Councilmember Schwab was the only one who came close. He wants more supporting data. That really should have been a starting point for everyone else. Because when any of us spend money, whether we're buying a house or we're just something online, we comparison shop, we validate prices. We ask, is this reasonable? I did that work. I spoke to the finance leaders in Walla Walla, in Sequim, at Clallam County, in Ellensburg, and Leavenworth. The consistent answer was simple. Most do not charge administration costs to their lodging tax fund. And when they do, it's typically because they're actually running a tourism event, not just administering grants. Yet here in Port Angeles, we're now funding nearly 1,400 hours of staff time for administration. Again, Clallam County manages a larger fund to really the same recipients and estimates they spend 60 hours. That's not a small difference. We're talking a 20x plus gap. This is not a funding issue. Staff claims that they're being ethical and diligent, so the only conclusion can be it's an efficiency issue. I'm especially concerned that we're accepting without question that our planning supervisor should spend 15% of his time on this program. Show me another city in Washington where their head of city planning job description says they'll be spending 15% on administering. Not running tourism, not creating events, just administering. I don't believe it exists. Nathan, you should be asking other committees, how are they so damn efficient in running their LTAC funds? Finally, I hope that the city is going to be treated similar as an applicant. And that means they should be submitting detailed documentation, providing proof of the work so we can find these inefficiencies. And so they're subject to the same level of review and audit of any grant recipient. I can tell you, if any grant was receiving $135,000, it would be scrutinized heavily, and I think we need to do that as well. I guess we're going to have to leave this up to the Washington State Auditor to ultimately decide. The bottom line is I think the council has a fiduciary responsibility. It's your job to ask questions, not just to approve, to ask whether it's justified. And it's interesting. The one thing that I did hear is 2 council members ask, what are our legal risks for option B? You don't get questions about legal exposure when something is clearly compliant. You get them when it isn't. So going forward, I'm going to strongly encourage council to take their fiduciary responsibility more seriously, ask more questions, ask what makes PA so inefficient compared to similar communities, demand improvement in structure and efficiency of these programs being administered.
And your time is up.
And good night.
Good night. Thank you. All right. No clapping, John. I can't. I appreciate that you don't usually. All right, we'll go to Susie Blake.
Hello.
Hi, Susie. We can hear you. So go ahead. I'll start your timer.
Thank you, Susie Blake, Port Angeles. I'm clapping at home and you can't stop me, but you can't hear me either, so I think it's okay. I second the comments of the last 3 speakers, Mr. Ralston and Mr. Palayo. I did not catch the name of the person in between because my technology was glitching, but I greatly appreciate and support her comment as well. And then just a few quick things I'll say for myself regarding the traffic with FIFA and us obviously having a strong potential for an extra busy tourist season. Aside from traffic, please consider how that affects things like garbage removal and support the staff who do that difficult job so well for our city. Garbage removal, public restroom access, just having the city prepared for the very many ways it's going to affect us. Law enforcement. I know every summer when the sirens are going constantly from traffic accidents, I know that the police are less available to address other issues in town. So please support the police, the waste removal, the people who clean our restrooms, and remove the trash. And maybe think about adding some extra porta potties temporarily. And then right after FIFA ends, I know it's out in the county, but it will affect tourism and traffic flows through Port Angeles. July 8th, the Mora closure starts. And I don't think people really realize how much that's going to affect the traffic flow throughout the county. And a lot of tourists just don't come prepared. I worked for Airmark at Lake Crescent when the Hurricane Ridge Lodge burnt down. And I don't know how many people plan a trip all year, but don't check the local news and got here and were angry and upset because they weren't aware that that area was closed. So we're going to have a lot of extra scrambling around town that's going to be increased demand, not just on traffic, but on law enforcement, on the people who take care of the trash and the bathrooms and things like that. That's all for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. All right, last hand. Mike Healy, go ahead when you're ready. Stop him. When you're unmuted, we'll make sure we can hear you, and then you state your name and whether or not you're a resident, and I'll start your timer when we can hear you. Sometimes it takes a minute. Sometimes there's an issue on your side, but we'll see. No, it's in the queue to be unmuted. I'm beginning to recognize more of that, so we'll just wait. Or we'll keep trying anyway. Well, we're not going to wait all night, Mike, but all right. We might just have to hear from you at the next meeting. Okay. I think you're going to drive down to the meeting. Okay. Sorry, Mike. There seems to be some technical issues. So we will check in with you at a future meeting if you want to. No pressure. Always nice to have you. But anyway, thanks for your work on the A Street Basin. And we will be adjourned. Thank you.